Live chat. Let me see if anybody. All right, peace, and blessings, everybody. Aki, I'm here, the Success Scholar. Let's do a mic check, see how that sound. All right. Let me go in this chat here. Just want to try that here. All right. Peace and blessings, everybody. Haki, I'm here, the Success Scholar. Man, I just wanted to do this piece. It's been on my mind for a week or so, but I was just inspired to really articulate some analysis that I believe sincerely and respectfully that many in our community need to hear at this particular time. And being the to ensure that my message is very comprehensive and truly understood and appreciated. So, but I haven't been on in about 3 as I've been getting new equipment, as well as so you can hear the difference. I hear echo. So let me try to do something different with this. See, oh, that's the sound. Let me try something different here. See if that would work better. Wait a minute. I'm gonna get into my message in a second. All right, how that sound? Check, 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 check. I think that sounds better. I think that sounds better. Yeah. But I'll see what other. I looked up before, but I just got this new microphone, and so I want to really begin to do my more formal podcast, shall I say, with just getting what I need to get out in different platforms. But I'm going to speak because I want to really do a compare in terms of just sharing just some of my experience and coming up being a success scholar, having studied many of the great Black teachers in many different realms, areas of study. I feel the need to be a bridge, to bridge the gap between many of our great scholars, our great teachers, and also encourage those who are out here that have a voice and have a brand and who have a message for them to really pick up some of the pieces that I have been attempting to fill, the gap that I have attempted to fill, and with some analysis and research that I personally, being one of the more conscious Black men of this time, I felt the need to make some things plain. So, with that being said, I heard part of a recent presentation of Dr. Umar Johnson, and I wanted to actually do a type of compare and contrast, for instance, because many people may not know this history, and we have to be careful as leaders that we do not alienate other conscious individuals, of course, but also that we are not, we're not sabotaging, what can be a potentially great movements for Black empowerment for this time. And so, but I wanted, I had this idea, for instance, over time, because I felt the need that many people may not know my history or my involvement, but also how I've been able to push these different people as well as their books into key policy making positions. That's from the policy perspective, but also the just the understanding of what individual we must do or can do. For instance, in the area of wealth creation and asset ownership, and really redirecting our dollars. And so, some people may ask, why would I do or title this to compare Dr. Claud Anderson versus Dr. Umar Johnson, as well as the lecture model, or why would I speak about the lecture model? There's a book out several years ago that came out several years ago by Dr. Amen and Pooh, who wrote a book uh, speaking about the lecture model, it was called Community Development. Let me find it. Let me find it. It was Community Development. I'm not going to say it was versus the lecture model, but the premise of the book was to shed light on how and why many of our previous generation of scholars, for instance, missed the mark, you know. And it was a critique, for instance, of the lecture model versus community development. And I'm in a position now where I see, for instance, that many or some individuals may, for instance, not have that insight. They may not have read the years of education throughout the system, either HBCUs or traditional TWI, traditional white institutions. They may not necessarily be centered on reading and studying our history uh, to a depth and understanding how to position both themselves as well as others for true power within the society. And this is what we have to be speaking about. And this is what, for instance, Dr. Amos Wilson spoke about. But, I have to offer, for instance, a critique uh, because I heard Dr. Umar express something regarding politicians and black politicians and why he's only going to support independence. And, that, certainly is a well theoretical ambition. And I would encourage everyone, for instance, that even, and yes, I do understand that the gentleman has a background in political science, but, when we do that, let's give credit to some of those that have come before us and actually have experience, not just theory from a college, university, and tangible work in terms of understanding the dynamics of politics as well as economics. Now, with that being said, Ron Walters certainly has to be acknowledged. Professor Warren Walters, who wrote the book White Interests, I'm sorry, Black Interests, Conservative Public Policy in America. And I believe the title, the initial title was White Nationalism. That's right. White Nationalism, Conservative Interests, Conservative Policy, and Black Interests, something to those effects of the title of the book. As well as he wrote a book, and he actually ran the campaign for Jesse Jackson during the first campaign. And I was recently became aware that he was encouraging Jesse during the second presidential run to be more independent of the Democratic Party. So I'm just giving some historical narratives, and as Professor Ron Walters wrote called Conservative Public Policy. No, not that. It was Black presidential campaigns from Black politics from 1972, I think, to 2000. Professor Ron Walters passed maybe, I'm not sure, but it's been a little while, more than 5 or 7 years. So it's certainly been a while. But recently there was a book that came out, like a biography that someone else wrote on Professor Walters. But I just want to say that uh, we need to be critical and careful how we frame and encourage people to look, for instance, at independence. That I know just from my analysis that you have to be pretty strong. And if these individuals who, for instance, suggesting people not vote, and I do listen to some of Cornell's analysis, I would hope that she would, get just off of YouTube and actually be involved either locally or nationally instead of just chit chatting. So that's certainly one of my goals and missions and ambitions. But let me just say this: I have single-handedly put, for instance, this book into the hands of key decision makers, African American, Black people, uh, either through various state level affairs, as well as local, as well as many in various congressional spaces. I felt the need to do that over the years of having individuals actually uh, really not have any purpose behind why they are actually running, or more so confusion about that. And so, with that being said, I these networks for political power, through scholastic research, through networking, and through understanding the balance between entrepreneurship as well as business. And so I have to just suggest that, it's not much more that's going to be said, than in the back of this book, for instance, this checklist that Dr. Claud Anderson laid out. And it's not much more that you're going to say. So either you're going to keep lecturing, doctor, or you're going to like find ways to help people with the capital. And let me just say, and I'm not just going to show people the economics book, because I'll just read a few things. It's a question one: do the issues programs leaders focus on the Black rights and economic integration instead of social integration and civil rights? So that's one. Do the issues program leaders acknowledge that Blacks are the only group that does not have a single community in America, and without communities, they cannot build wealth? So, these are some things. And this is why I'm sincerely hoping, since that, you got to read. You got to read this. And I've read this like 3 times. And what's happened is sometimes these individual scholars, they who work in their particular field or area, their particular degree, they don't venture into other spaces. And this is why, yes, I mean, I do believe that we must study many of our great psychologists.